It wasn't always a donkey. Sometimes it was a horse. Sometimes it was a mule. Whatever they had, yes, they would use that false beacon and the donkey or the mule or the horse or whatever animal they had to confuse a sailor, a captain of a ship offshore, because they relied so much on lighthouses. They would confuse them by simulating a lighthouse to make them go off course. And by the time they hit the breakers, it was too late to do anything to correct their course. And this one account that I have from the state of New Jersey, it details all these different wrecks that went down under mysterious circumstances. And some of the residents were seen removing things from the bodies, and personal effects and money and all that. Her lover went to sea, and she awaited his return, but she was part of her father's band of wreckers, and when they lured various ships to shore, they would strip the bodies of anything of value and of course collect whatever cargo they could. And one of the bodies that she was stripping and emptying the pockets, when she turned the body over, it happened to be her lover. So she let out this death, defying scream. And ever since, she's been walking up and down the beach wailing because she killed her lover.
Ocean County began south of the Manasquan River in Point Pleasant and extended south to Little Egg Harbor. A string of long barrier islands make up most of its coastal landscape. In 1870, local sea captain John Arnold built a road from his boarding house to Squan Beach in Point Pleasant. The road would later be named Arnold Avenue. By 1872, Clark's Landing on the Manasquan River had developed into a site for boating and recreation, with a pavilion and the area's first merry-go-round. The town's first big hotel, the Resort House, opened in 1878, and by 1899, Point Pleasant was a flourishing summer resort with electric trolleys, a newspaper, 5 churches, and 4 hotels. The town of Bayhead sits at the head of Barnegat Bay. Incorporated in 1886, a small boatyard was started in the area years before, and boat builders have thrived there ever since, living comfortably among the great beach houses. Further south is Island Beach, a 20-mile barrier peninsula that separates Barnegat Bay from the Atlantic Ocean. A series of small resorts would develop on this stretch of coastline between 1870 and 1900. A few wealthy individuals began building large beach houses along the oceanfront dunes at Mantaloking and Chadwick. Many of those beach houses remain standing today. Albert Lavalette created a resort in honor of his father, the first admiral commissioned in the U.S. Navy. He opened the elegant Sportsman's Hall in the 1870s. Yachting, fishing, and boating have been favorite pastimes there ever since. In 1876, the Baptists founded Seaside Park on 300 acres of dunes and sawgrass. It was intended to be a place free from the blighting influences of immorality, drunkenness, and Sabbath desecration. The only transportation to get there was by boat across Barnegat Bay. The first hotel in the area was actually built on the mainland and barged across the bay in pieces. The first cottages built at Seaside were modest compared to some other beach towns. As the place gradually became less devout, it continued to maintain its community spirit. Seaside Park was organized as a borough in 1898. Seaside Heights would be developed into one of New Jersey's most thriving seaside resorts in the 20th century. The borough of Island Beach, on the southern end of Barnegat Peninsula, had a few sportsman hotels, along with an interesting group of people living there, called the Baymen. These hardy fishermen lived in small shanties and supplemented their diet and income solely from the waters of Barnegat Bay. Long Beach is an 18-mile long, half-mile wide barrier island, commonly known today as Long Beach Island. The resort of Beach Haven was founded in 1874, and the Parry House opened with rooms for 320 guests. Despite the tales of swarms of mosquitoes in every room, Philadelphians filled the first posh resort on the island. When the Parry House burned to the ground in 1881, with over 200 guests and residents, the owners built the Hotel Baldwin a few blocks away. With its gables and minarets, it was often referred to as Dracula's Castle. The central and northern ends of the island began to develop once the railroad had crossed Barnegat Bay from Mantaloking in the 1880s. The train arrived on the island in an area known as Ship Bottom, and trolleys ran the length of the beach. The small village of Harvey Cedars, once the site of a whale fishery, boasted one of the country's first life-saving stations and a sportsman's hotel. After going by many names like the Great Swamp and Old Mansion, Surf City settled on its name in 1894. The area immediately around Barnegat Light was named Barnegat City. 2 hotels were built there in 1880, the Oceanic and the Sunset, along with some smaller cottages. Consisting mostly of farming and fishing villages, the area around Tuckerton, Little Egg Harbor, and the Great Bay remained relatively rural and undeveloped until the 20th century. Early in the 1880s, the railroad was extended the length of Absecon Island. Trains ran excursions to the pristine virgin dunes south of Atlantic City, promoting the pleasure and health benefits derived from the plant and animal life of the sea. Steamboats ferried visitors to Brigantine, and trolleys ran the length of the beach. South Atlantic City became Margate, and in 1882, promoters created a highly successful advertising gimmick, Lucy the Wooden Elephant. Between Margate and Atlantic City, Ventnor was organized in 1903, and at the southern tip of Absecon Island, Longport was founded in 1898. In 1887, Josiah White III traveled from Philadelphia to Atlantic City. He bought a 90-room hotel, the Luray, on Kentucky Avenue, near the beach. The owner was selling because he believed that Atlantic City had reached its peak of popularity. He added 200 rooms to the hotel, along with a storefront on the boardwalk topped with a sun deck. Vacationers fell in love with it. When a fire destroyed the Luray, he built a new hotel, the Marlborough House. When an amusement park opened on the lot outside the Marlborough's windows, he simply bought up the property and constructed the Blenheim in 1906. From the ocean, it resembled a magnificent sandcastle, offering its guests the first fireproof hotel in the city, as well as private baths with fresh and salt running water. Elegant and luxurious hotels were being built or expanded all along the oceanfront, like the Tremor, the Dennis, the St. Charles, and Chalfont Haddon Hall. These hotels made up the center of Atlantic City's thriving boardwalk activity. Amusement piers were becoming a major part of Atlantic City's appeal. In 1884, Applegate's Pier was built at the foot of Tennessee Avenue. It was renamed the Ocean Pier and extended more than a half-mile in length. One popular attraction was called the Big Net Hall. Twice a day, a net was raised from the ocean floor, containing bizarre and unusual sea creatures of all kinds. Another pier was built in 1896 at the foot of Massachusetts Avenue, called the Iron Pier. It was later sold to the Heinz Company. Visitors could sample Heinz pickles on their stroll up and down. In 1898, the legendary Steel Pier was built at the foot of Virginia Avenue. 1,760 feet long, it extended over 1,600 feet out into the ocean, featuring a grand auditorium, theater, and music hall, as well as a number of pavilions. Entertainment acts from all over the nation performed on the stages there. It is the only pier still in operation today. Auditorium Pier was built in 1899 on the boardwalk near Pennsylvania Avenue and adjacent to Steel Pier. It was sold to entrepreneur George C. Tilley in 1908, who would change the name to Steeplechase Pier. John Philip Sousa and his 85-piece orchestra were among the many popular performers to play in the auditorium. John Lake Young's $1 Million Pier opened in 1906. This newest pier had the world's largest ballroom, called a hippodrome, a theater, a concert hall, aquarium, and Young's personal home, the postal address 1 Atlantic Ocean. It was described by one enthusiastic visitor as a delightful breathing place on a warm summer's day.